I'm sorry, I'm just watching Denzel Burke and Davis and Igmanosin work on back shoulder throws a couple of days before they have to play a team who loves to throw the back shoulder throw. I'm Steven, that's Andrew, and that's Stefan. Ohio State plays Indiana, and it's their top 5 game of the season. We're in the Woody, as you can see. We just talked with Ryan Day and a boatload of players. Well, not a boatload. We talked to a handful of players before this game, and it is official. Ohio State starting offensive line 3.0 is Donovan Jackson at left tackle, Austin Saravelt at left guard, who started 2 games to start the year. Carson Hinsman is back at center. He started 12 games last year as a center. And then the right side, which keeps evading it, man. Death keeps evading it. Tegra Shabola and Joshua Fryer on the right side of Ohio State's offensive line. How did Ryan Day maybe talk about that group, Stefan, and what he's expecting from that group, and also just the experience that group does have, even if for Austin Saravelt it's not a lot?
Yeah, he made it sound like the team kind of as a whole, and specifically the offensive line, you see maybe some of the veteran aspects of it, the way they moved on from the injury, right? Like Ryan Day kind of said, like, it happened, it stinks, but, like, you have to move on, probably because there's a top 5 matchup, in Ohio Stadium on Saturday. So he sounded confident, and not that he was going to go out there and sound like he wasn't confident, but it is easy to forget that Carson Hinsman has a year of Big Ten starting experience at center. And was it flawless all the time? No, but he had a pretty good season. Ryan Day said we've won a lot of games with Carson Hinsman at center. I think that's valuable. I think the bigger question is probably just with Austin Saravelt now, right? Because he looked okay the first game against Akron, and looked like it needed some time to kind of get his feet set. And then the second game against Western Michigan, he looked pretty good. I thought the offensive line as a whole, that was kind of when it really started to click for that unit, especially with Donovan Jackson still having not played at that point. So now it's about, let's see how he's kind of progressed since then. What has he been doing behind the scenes? We've seen him a bit at right guard, but we haven't seen him at left guard, I don't think, since, unless it was in garbage time. But we haven't seen him much, at least in important snaps, at left guard. It's going to be a big test for him, right? Carson Hinsman, he's been, I mentioned starting last year, he's also been working behind Seth McLaughlin this whole time, right? Like, it's not like he was working a ton at left guard before the injury that forced Donovan Jackson to move over. So, like, for the better part of the last 12 months, Carson Hinsman has been working at center. It's just been the backup center role. So this should be something he's comfortable in. He also looked like he was really getting into a rhythm at left guard. I know it's a position change, but he's been playing well for Ohio State in terms of blocking for Will Howard. So at the center position, it seems like you can be pretty comfortable with what you've got. Now let's see where Austin Saravelt has made the next stride at left guard. It goes back to what we were talking about. This felt like a spot that it sucks to lose Seth McLaughlin, but they could maybe adjust if needed. And going out of this presser, just hearing from Ryan Day, it kind of reaffirms that. I think they're in an okay spot, all things considered.
Donovan Jackson called Austin Saravelt an athletic monster. What's your confidence level in the athletic monster, Andrew?
In Austin Saravelt individually, or in the entire offensive line?
And the athletic monster.
In the athletic monster, probably like a 5 at this point.
Even if he's called an athletic monster?
Even if he's called an athletic monster. I've heard athletic freak described to, like, C.J. Hicks before, and C.J. Hicks hasn't really had an impact on this team. So, sometimes
the athletic monster calling me.
I think sometimes, you hear praise from guys, and that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how well the Oregon game looked for Saravelt. I went back and I was like, there were some snaps there where I think he would want back. Obviously, Tegra Shabola got kind of banged up in that game. That was the game where Josh Simmons gets hurt. Tegra's kind of banged up, so Saravelt's kind of rotating in there. I have questions. I think it'll be fine. I like Donovan Jackson said this. There's not really replacing Seth McLaughlin. You're not going to do this. We talked about this in off-season podcasts where, maybe you can replace him in the aggregate, like Moneyball, right? You can replace him in a couple of different ways. There's really not that type of situation brewing on the offensive line. So I'm feeling okay about Saravelt. So, kind of right down the middle. I think it's probably going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be an unmitigated disaster. I think we saw, the Zen Mahalski situation to tackle that just was not working. I don't think it's going to be that ugly. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think Carson Hinsman, you feel pretty good about where he's at. I texted this out to our texter 614-350-3315. Carson Hinsman, when he was dealing with Seth McLaughlin when he showed up, Seth McLaughlin was like, "Oh my God, I might not start." Like, Carson Hinsman is really good, and he talked about how strong he was and how he really took to the offense. So Carson Hinsman, I feel pretty good about him at center, which I think maybe lessens the load on Austin Sierreveld. But I don't think it's going to be great, but I also don't think it's going to be a disaster. So I'm kind of right down the middle of the 5.
I think that's a great sentiment. He was never not going to start.
I agree. But
Okay, let's just calm down. He was going to be the starting center. The other interesting thing, Ryan Day said that Josh Padilla, who played 3 snaps against Northwestern, he said he looked pretty good in those snaps. He would be up next at center. Luke Montgomery would be up next at guard, regardless of whether it's not his left guard or right guard. I clarified that with Ryan Day. I'm not as worried about the offensive line as I was when this news originally came out last night on Tuesday night. I'll get into why on the Buckeye Talk pod. Go listen to that wherever you listen to podcast and get the text 614-350-3315. We might get hit by a ball from Davison Igmanosin, so we're going to try to move out the way here. Stephen, Andrew, Stefan, and Davison. See you later.